The St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, which took place in Paris during the night of August 23rd-24th, 1572, stands as one of the most shocking and tragic episodes in the history of religious conflicts in Europe. It marked the climax of tensions between French Catholics and Huguenots, the Protestant followers of John Calvin, who had long been locked in a bitter struggle for political and spiritual influence within the Kingdom of France. The massacre was not an isolated event, but the result of years of escalating hostilities, political maneuvering, and mutual distrust, all set against the backdrop of the wider European Reformation. By the early 1570s, France was deeply divided along religious lines. The crown, under the rule of the young King Charles IX and the powerful influence of his mother, Catherine de Medici, had tried to maintain a fragile balance between the two factions. The Peace of Saint-Germain in 1570 had officially ended the third of the French wars of religion, granting limited freedoms to the Huguenots. This peace, however, was uneasy and deeply resented by many militant Catholics, particularly those loyal to the powerful Guise family, who viewed the concessions as an affront to the Catholic faith and royal authority. In an attempt to strengthen the fragile peace and unite the kingdom, Catherine de Medici arranged the marriage of her daughter, the Catholic Princess Margaret of Valois, to Henry of Navarre, a leading Huguenot prince who would later become King Henry IV of France. The wedding, celebrated in Paris on August 18, 1572, brought together a large number of Huguenot nobles in the capital, a city overwhelmingly dominated by Catholics. Despite the festive atmosphere, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Many Parisians saw the presence of armed Huguenots as a provocation, while extremists within the Catholic faction viewed the union as a dangerous compromise that threatened the purity of the faith. The spark that ignited the catastrophe came just days after the wedding, when an assassination attempt was made on Admiral Gaspard de Coligny, one of the most respected Huguenot leaders and a trusted advisor to the king. Although Coligny survived the attack, his wounding enraged the Huguenots, who demanded justice and suspected the Catholic Guise family of being behind the plot. Catherine de Medici and the royal council, fearing that the Huguenots might retaliate and plunge the country back into civil war, decided to strike first. On the night of August 23rd-24th, under the pretext of eliminating the Huguenot leadership, orders were secretly issued for the targeted killing of Protestant nobles. The violence began in the early hours, when troops and armed mobs, guided by lists of names, stormed the lodgings of Huguenot leaders. Admiral Coligny was dragged from his bed, brutally murdered, and his body thrown from a window. What began as a selective purge quickly spiraled out of control. The massacre spread through the streets of Paris as the city descended into chaos. Ordinary citizens, encouraged by fanatical preachers and the sound of church bells, joined in the slaughter. Men, women, and children were hunted down in their homes, in the streets, or even while seeking refuge in churches. The Seine River became choked with corpses. For 3 days, Paris was gripped by an orgy of bloodshed, looting, and vengeance, during which thousands were killed, although estimates vary widely from 2,000 to as many as 10,000 victims in the capital alone. The massacre soon spread beyond Paris to other cities and provinces, including Lyon, Rouen, Bordeaux, and Toulouse, as news of the killings and royal approval, whether real or assumed, emboldened local Catholics to act. Over the following weeks, the violence claimed tens of thousands of Protestant lives across France. King Charles IX, either complicit or coerced by his mother and advisors, publicly took responsibility for the massacre, declaring that it had been necessary to prevent a Huguenot uprising. This official stance shattered any remaining trust between the two communities. In the eyes of Protestant Europe, the French crown had committed an unforgivable act of treachery, and the event became a symbol of Catholic cruelty and fanaticism. The massacre deeply affected the European political landscape. Protestant states such as England, the Dutch Republic, and several German principalities reacted with horror,
while the papacy and Catholic monarchs, though disturbed by the scale of the violence, saw it as a victory over heresy. Pope Gregory XIII even ordered a Te Deum to be sung in celebration, an act that further inflamed Protestant indignation. In France, the massacre reignited the wars of religion, plunging the country into renewed conflict that would last for decades. It also left an indelible scar on the French monarchy, which became associated with deceit and religious intolerance. The future Henry IV, who had narrowly escaped death by temporarily renouncing his Protestant faith, would later convert permanently to Catholicism to secure peace, famously declaring that Paris is well worth a Mass. The St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre thus remains a dark symbol of the destructive power of fanaticism and political manipulation, a tragedy that revealed the peril of intertwining faith and state power in an age when religious identity defined both allegiance and survival.